Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. You are hearing the sweet sounds of JRB, your host for the evening. I promise TCR is with us too. It won't just be me tonight. Tune in just a few short minutes as we kick off episode 98 of Lights, Thunder, Action.
Welcome to
LTA with
TCR
and JRB.
This is where the fun begins.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensional.
Flourish. Peter 3.
Num num.
I'm vengeance.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup! I love you guys.
Hold on to your butts.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
Dude, I almost had you.
To that I say, all right.
Hello there, Rebels. Wrong podcast. Good evening. It is August 29th, and it is time for your Monday night pick-me-up, where two Thunder buddies dive into all things Marvel, DC, pop culture, IP, and the latest happenings in the film industry.
Yes, indeed, on tonight's episode of Lights, Thunder, Action, Thomas and I are going to be talking the second installment of She-Hulk. And we have a lot of other Marvel news I think is worth discussing, as well as Warner Brothers admitting that Snyder Cut was a mistake? What? But before we get to all of that, Thomas, where can everybody find our podcasts?
First off, they make mistakes all the time. They should just accept it and get over it and then reboot everything like they do every 5 years. But
That's a great plan.
It's a great plan. They do it. It's happening now. We are live beaming directly into your homes and phones via our Lights Thunder Action Facebook and the HWWS WebTV channel on Twitter and YouTube. All of those links can be found at Linktr.com/Lights Thunder Action. All one word, no hyphens, no spaces. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow to view the live version of our show where you can interact with us. But if you don't want to look at our beautiful bearded faces, but you love to listen to our beautiful bearded voices,
then you can hear our beautiful voices on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and Spotify. Please follow and subscribe on those platforms. Please give us a review, preferably 5 stars, if you will, and ask us a question in that review. We'll answer it right here and right now.
all the seds are truths. That's not a sentence.
Yeah, dude. Now that we got that out of the way.
Yeah, how you doing, buddy? It's been forever.
The first thing, Thomas just casually texted me today and was like, are any of these theaters near you? And it was a screenshot of maybe 3 theaters in my area, and one just happens to be like maybe not even 3 minutes down the road. I go, that one's right next to me. And he goes, oh, no big deal. I'm in a movie that's playing there right now. Corsicana is playing in my hometown right now, and I'm going to be going to see it this week. So, yes, here we go.
Yeah.
Star Cinema and Grill. They have a location literally right down the block from me. So I'm so excited to go see this now that I know it's there.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome, man. I am going to go see TCR on the silver screen. Does it feel weird that you have a movie out now that you're in?
What if I told you I forget about things I'm in on a regular basis so that I'm surprised when it happens?
Humble.
Yeah.
Or forgetful.
Bit of both. Definitely bit of both. Yeah, no, I just kind of the same way that I read a script and forget everything that I'm not in, so that way I am surprised when I see the movie. That's how I approach filmmaking in life. You know, I want to enjoy the art that is presented at the end. But yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of weird. It is weird that 2 years later we have the film that I'm just like, my first feature. It's out, it's real, it exists, it's in the world now. People have seen it, I have seen it. And I only hated my performance the first time. So I'm doing good. But yeah, it's shameless plug here. It is currently in 11 theaters in across Texas and Illinois right now. Star Cinema Grill, one of the fanciest, let me rephrase that, the fanciest theater I've ever been in, and I went to 2 of them, and I don't know which one's more fancy than the other one. Absolutely great service. Where I went, we had they had great food options, great bar with lots like a full bar in there. They have ushers. You press a button on your little thing, and ushers will come up to you, take your order, go back, come back with your food and drink, dude. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
It's fantastic.
That might be my favorite part about this place is you can get chicken tenders during a movie and you don't have to get up.
Yeah.
You're just waiting on.
Exactly.
Almost hand and foot.
I mean, it comes in their hand and they bring it on foot. So, I mean, it's not wrong.
They get paid a livable. It's okay. Yes. So Star Cinema Grill, Corsicana is playing in my hometown. So I am super excited to go check it out. And dude, seeing you on this big screen is going to be so strange, but I am so looking forward to it.
You're telling me. I just got back. What's today? Monday. I just got back Saturday from Houston area. We had 2 premieres, one in Richmond / Katy, Texas, and the other in Missouri City, Texas. All right there around the Houston metropolitan area. Those 2 were, and I got to see the movie finally. I've been told a lot of things, and it lives up to what I've been told, which is amazing, because sometimes you just like, you're saying that because you're so invested, and I say things because I'm invested. Thor: Love and Thunder that may or may not be true to other people. So it was great to see it. Got to see all my castmates again. Got to meet some castmates I didn't film with. Met some new folks. Networked, drank. It's fantastic. I'm very proud that it is done. I'm very proud that it exists. It's out there in the world now, and I can't wait for it to continue opening doors. If you live in St. Louis, it's going to be premiering 2 weeks from this past Saturday in St. Louis, Missouri. Yep, and that's when it starts to roll out in that area, and then Fort Lauderdale. Damn Southern accent coming out. Gosh dang it. Talking about a Western and the accent rolls on out. Fort Lauderdale will have the Florida premiere, and then a few theaters there in Fort Lauderdale will be carrying the movie. More to come as we continue on this journey. If you want to see it, reach out to your local theater and annoy them, because I have a lot of friends being like, where can I watch it? And I'm like, right now, not where you live. So JRB right now is the only one lucky enough to go see it. Is the only.
I know. What are the odds that it's showing in Texas and Illinois? And look, I'm just happy to see it. If you have any intention of checking this movie out, please do so while it's in theaters. It supports the film on a whole other level, and I would love to see as many people out supporting your first feature as we can. So yeah, of course, kind of in theaters. Check it out. Yes. I'll be doing that this week.
Yes. And really quick, for those of you that have just joined us on the video, here are all the locations of Star Cinema Grill, A, in the world, and B, that are showing Corsicana. So it's a twofer. And thank you so much for joining us. We will remove ourselves from the shameless plug section of this show. JRB, how are you, though? Oh, that right.
I'm doing good. Man. Yeah, I got my 25th birthday coming up, second week in September. NFL season starting soon. So we've got a couple fantasy football drafts coming up, including ours. Hopefully we get that going soon over at the Direct, and your honorary Direct member.
That's me.
That's honorary. You. TCR and the Direct.
I guess I'm not the only
friends.
one anymore, actually.
You're not?
I'm not. No, I mean, Liam, he's not there anymore. He's moved on.
You're right. Liam Crowley is no longer with the Direct because he is.
I'm not the only honorary.
You're not the only one. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I thought if anything we would absorb you, but no, everyone's branching out. But yeah, everything's good, dude. Man. Everything's going really well.
Hell yeah, dude.
I gotta say, there's a lot of Marvel stuff happening that we're starting to actually get some news on. So much that I think we actually missed this last week, but last Monday We
did
finally
not.
got a. We did not.
We did it at the very end. Yeah, we did.
No way.
Yeah, we did.
I don't remember talking about this at all.
I deleted it from the notes because I threw it in there at the last minute. We definitely did. We shared the screen.
Okay, then we're just gonna.
We totally talked about Ironheart.
I have a whole list of notes here that I was going to go through for this. I cannot believe we've already discussed this.
So you do with our show as I do with other stuff. Look at us.
So with the next 5 minutes, Thomas is just going to vamp for a bit, and I'm going to go to last week's episode, number 97, and I'm going to find the segment on this so that I can hear my thoughts and just make sure I got everything out. So,
well, don't worry. I got a whole She-Hulk wrong. I have a whole House of the Dragon episode to review by myself.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because speaking of our chat with some of our buddies, I also learned today that the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon second episode did something that's apparently really, really unprecedented. And it doesn't seem like much, but the viewership from the premiere date to the second episode that just dropped, the viewership actually went up by 2%.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, but apparently that almost never happens. Especially with like these new streaming series. But Thomas, the second episode of House of the Dragon, it actually bumped up its viewership even more after the premiere had already set a record for HBO as their biggest premiere ever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it has. If I'm not mistaken, it's like one of the highest premieres of all time as well.
I think I just read that it's up to 25 million total right now.
Yeah,
and
just
10 of those million came in the first night, didn't they?
They did, yeah. 10 million on night one, and the second episode last night had 10.2 million. It is very rare for sure that shows on the second week have a bump up in viewership because most of the time people check it out and go, all right, it's not for me. And then it goes down. And people who didn't check it out are like, whatever, and wait till it's on streaming. Well, because of the event that is Game of Thrones, or I guess the event that was Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon comes back. And again, it's not just streaming on HBO Max. It is also live on HBO every week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. Yeah, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it drops on HBO on your premium cable service. So it also drops around that same time. I say around that same time because last week it was like 10 minutes early, and this week it was like 5 minutes early because I hopped in early. And the second episode, man, woo-wee! I was anticipating a very sad episode of like, here's the funeral, like ramifications, here's what's happened, like everyone's coming after the heir. No, man, 6-month time jump that they threw in on a little line that I missed the first time until I watched the recap episode, like behind the scenes after the episode. 6-month time jump, and nothing has really changed, which is amazing because in Game of Thrones, they would have like a couple week time jump and a couple week time jump, and a lot of stuff wouldn't really happen. So after 6 months, spoiler alert, the queen is dead. The heir is now the daughter, and the brother is MIA. The king's brother is MIA, hiding out in one place. And this whole episode is about showing how she was named heir, but nothing has changed in her life. She literally still does the exact same thing of pouring wine into cups, and no one takes her seriously. Fast forward. And there's two main cruxes of this episode. A, the king needs to get a new wife. And B, sorry, I was thinking about something else. B, we'll have an asterisk for number C. B is the brother Daemon is holed up in Dragonstone and steals a dragon egg and claims he's going to put it in his baby's cradle. Those go in two very different directions that just so happen to very strongly tie to Rhaenyra, who is the main character of this show. I don't care what anyone says. She takes a dragon and goes and just basically just totally calls the bluff of her uncle, who's, being just a royal pissant. And she uses her dragon and just gets it back and is a total badass. And then meanwhile, earlier on in the episode, they want the king to marry a fucking 12-year-old, man. And it is weird. Yeah, it's weird. It's super weird. Why shouldn't it be weird? I'm looking at you, history. Why are you so weird? Stop being that weird. It's creepy. Anyways, yeah. And there's a whole line where she's like, I would be very happy to wed you and give you many, many heirs. And it's like, is that what your father told you to say? And it's kind of like it. Yeah. And then it's like, what did your mother say? I wouldn't have to bed you until I was 14. No.
Yeah.
Fast forward, he decides to marry his daughter's best friend. So still weird. Still weird. Now even more conflict to the point that number C, another important thing that was brought up last week, there's a crab eater out there. They call him the crab eater because he uses crabs to eat his enemies. So they show this a couple times where there are just dudes being eaten, tied to a post, and crabs are feeding on them. And they're dying aggressively, slowly, and aggressively painfully. Come on to the end. Very disgusting. So the 12-year-old is the daughter of the king's cousin, because, weird. It's a very Targaryen thing. The king's cousin and her husband, who is also on his court, and the guy who's really worried about the crab eater, crab sucker, whatever they name him, I can't remember. So when he decides not to marry his daughter, he leaves and goes and joins Damon. Spoiler alert if you've not seen this episode, because it came out last night. Goes out, does that, and decides to join Damon and get him and join his cause for being king. And that's only episode 2, man. Next week's preview has another time jump. There's an heir to the throne born. I can't even tell what's about to happen in this show. Like, truly cannot tell what's going to happen. It's set 200 years before Daenerys is born. And I'm very curious to see if we are going to cover 200 years of history in this show through seasons 1 through 4. Because I believe they have a 4-season arc planned out. This show is so good. I think our buddy Nathan Johnson was mentioning today, like, there are some people who are like, oh, I don't know if this show is like, for me or not. That's the 2 million that hopped in, or the 200,000, I believe, that hopped in and joined the cause of watching it live this week. And he's like, but there are a lot of people who didn't realize how much Game of Thrones meant to them until this show came back. I'm that guy. I did not watch Game of Thrones live until about season 4. I watched it all on HBO. Back then, it was just HBO Go, so we're going to bring it back. I watched it on the good old Habogo, and I watched season 3 jacked up on Valium after getting my wisdom teeth taken out, and the Red Wedding happens, and all of a sudden I'm very sober and very much in pain emotionally and physically. And then season 4 happens, and I'm watching it, and it's good. And then season 5, I get so sucked in that I'm like all the way live in that series. This show, man, the show moves at a different clip, a different pace, and I like it. It's very good. And I'm telling you, JRB, by the end, by week 5, I think I'm going to have you hooked, because I've heard some crazy stuff supposed to happen. There's supposed to be a massive time jump, which explains my confusion of the trailers. But yeah, man, I'm ready. I give this, what was my rating last week? How many dragons out of what? 9 out of 9 dragons?
I think it was 9 out of 9 dragons.
9 out of 9 dragons 2 weeks in a row. There's only 9. We've seen so far only 2 dragons. I'm feeling a little bit. I'm feeling robbed. I can't lie about it, man. I've only seen 2 dragons, and they haven't fought yet.
How many episodes are there supposed to be?
10. Usually it's 10 episodes of each of Game of Thrones seasons.
Gotcha.
So at the very least, well, nope, they've already confirmed season 2. So at the very least 20 episodes.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Those 2 seasons combined, the second season?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm including the second season. I'm looking 200 days ahead, or however many days until the second season premiere. So 9 out of 9 dragons. Good God, this show is great. I'm gonna have to bring somebody on, maybe in a future episode, just to banter back and forth with, because you're looking at me like, yep, you're vamping well, bud. I appreciate it. Yep, you're doing good.
There's nothing for me to contribute here. You know, I just love to hear you gush about this show that you love.
It's
because
so good.
It means so much to so many people, and I never got into it, but I mean, it is quite the epidemic. I mean, it's once again taken the world by storm, and it's like it never left.
Well, I mean, it definitely left. It definitely left because there's
going online, it doesn't feel like it did now to someone outside of it. You know, you don't get that perspective much because so many people like this show. But being on the outside of it, it's right back to how it used to be, where my Twitter feed is just filled with obscure references to this medieval show with dragons.
Yeah,
but it's really cool to see how excited everyone is about it. Yeah, so happy for you. I can't wait to hear what happens next and how it moves you.
House of the Dragon, man, every Sunday. I also, actually, last night was rough. I'm not going to lie. I kept having to pause and come back and be like, what happened again? Because I was doing a fantasy draft last night at the same time. So
it's tough.
Real fast. Oh, my team is not bad. My team is not bad. I went in with a very specific strategy because we have a double flex league, no kickers. So I went in with the strategy of just bank on all my receivers carrying my weeks and only stick to the very few running backs I trust and the very, very few offensive lines I trust in the NFL.
Oh, you guys are drafting linemen?
No, listen, in the NFL. Okay, we're about to have a real fast discussion. You can't do a damn thing without a good offensive line. Good, not great, good. How many teams have a good offensive line?
Maybe
I would say
6.
Yeah. I would say 10 have good offensive lines, and only 4 of them at most are ever great.
Mm-hmm.
Only 1 is ever elite. And normally that's the one with the most rushing yards and the least amount of sacks. Like, that's what I consider elite. There's a lot of good running backs out there that I'm like, I don't trust your offensive line. Sorry, number 1 draft prospect. You're not even on my board, kid. I had to give up some of my favorite players on other teams because I'm like, nah, man, I can't trust your line at all. Meanwhile, I almost got Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, but I missed out by like that.
Oh, that would have been a combo.
Right? I would have literally killed everybody. If only I could have 2 quarterbacks. Could you imagine?
That's what my league is. I run a league with some of my buddies, and it's double flex and double QB.
What?
Yeah,
oh, that's so
insane.
awesome. That's so cool.
It's a wild time.
Oh, man.
I'll have to see if a spot opens up next season. Maybe we can squeeze you in.
Are you kidding me?
Double QB is always a good time.
I love
double QB might be my favorite way to play.
I want to play one. I've never played a double QB, and I've always wanted to because I'm like, dude, there's so many good QBs out there. Like, you could get a strictly running QB and a strictly passing QB in between the two. Right. You're going to murder.
Exactly, because if you only get to grab a guy like Brady, he's going to be great when his receivers are doing well. But other than that, he's not going to perform at all.
Yeah.
So finding a guy who can either handle the other end of the spectrum or one who's dynamic in both areas, you have a way better chance of being successful when you have that second slot. So yeah, it pays off big time.
Give me one sec, real fast. I drafted 3 quarterbacks. I can't remember my third one. I had Justin Herbert, Trey Lance. I know. Justin Fields, maybe?
Ooh, Chicago boy.
Yep, I went Fields. And if I'm not mistaken, Fields and Trey Lance play each other the first week. So whoever does better, they stay on my roster. The other gets dropped.
Justin Fields is creating a lot of noise in Chicago, man. Everyone is. I mean, Chicagoans are notorious for getting their hopes up in the offseason, but it's different this time.
Yeah, no, it really is different because he is really good. I saw his preseason stats, And I saw what he was able to do last year when they were able to protect him a little bit. So I figured I'll pick him and Trey Lance up. They both got, I've got Herbert. As long as he doesn't get injured, I've got a number one all season long. But it's always nice to have that, backup option when they go to play a really shitty Jets team, right?
Always.
So we'll get off of fantasy ballfoot here and then jump back into the show. JRB, you've done some research. Did we cover Ironheart last week?
We did cover Ironheart last week.
Knew it.
Yep, it happened. It happened, and it came and it went, and I don't even remember it being here in the first place. But
I snuck it in last week.
Yeah, man, what a week it's been. So what are we? We just had a little segment of Lights Touchdown Action. Now we're
oh shit. That's so good. Oh, we're gonna add that segment every Monday, bro.
Okay.
It'll be
all right, so we'll call it even. I forgot that we covered Ironheart, but I came up with a good football segment. So all right.
Yeah, are you kidding me? That peaks. That's better than Ironheart. Sorry, Ironheart. Football is number one love. It was football and then Star Wars, if that gives you an idea.
Wow.
Yeah. Football was, I was born into the football world. Let's jump into our actual main topic, She-Hulk, episode 2. Now, number 1, right off the jump, last week you were worried about the tone going forward, and I'm very curious. My only real question I have for this whole show is, how did the tone sit with you this week?
I think it's leveled out very nicely compared to what they left us with last week. I think what I was concerned about, it didn't really happen, even with the absence of the co-main character she was feeding off of in episode 1. Tatiana Maslany can feed off of anyone. That she proved it with episode 2. Every scene she had, she killed it, no matter who she was working with. So, I guess I don't know if I was afraid that she wouldn't be able to carry it on her own because she was a new actress. She's a new actress for Marvel, and for me, I've come to learn that she is very talented and very experienced in what she does, and has taken learning this role and bringing it to life very seriously. And I think episode 2 did a good job of showing that, because you saw her at some high points and you also saw her at some low points. You saw her at some really funny points too. So I do still have a couple gripes with the format of this show, but I mean, the content itself, I really don't have any issue with.
What dost thou mean by format?
I think it's for the content that they're presenting, it's just not enough, like in terms of runtime, because
we're on the runtime debate. I love it right off the jump.
Yeah, and the reason and week 2 confirmed it, because if you would have just put episodes 1 and 2 together, that would have been a pilot episode in itself. And I feel like whether they released those back to back or just made it one larger episode that was about 50 minutes, regardless of how they wanted to approach that, I think both of those episodes needed to be together, because although I did appreciate how the tone stayed similar throughout, when you finished episode 1, it felt like they were like doing some exposition, doing some explaining, getting the backstory out of the way, literally admitted, I have to tell you this first so that we can get on with this, and then set it up so that things could get rolling with episode 2. But then when you got into episode 2 and you started following the events for about 20 minutes, it still felt like you were figuring things out and things were falling into place before the actual substance of the show got going.
Okay.
And instead of Jennifer Walters figuring out what her next step would be and what her job is, and finding that job with GLK and H, it just felt like more exposition. They just had to rush out of the way. That montage of her looking for work lasted like 10 minutes. And
what?
Because 10 minutes is half of the episode, because it was only 22 minutes.
It didn't take that long. She wasn't looking for, no, you said, okay, hold on. The montage. I was thinking just the montage. That was like 45 seconds. But
I mean, from when she was unemployed to when she found a new job,
I took you
10 minutes of time. And the only reason I have an issue with that is because they've blocked out 9 weeks for this show. where they could really dive deeper and get to know this character while she's struggling, not just coming in and out of it. We're not seeing her in the gritty, really. We're just seeing her going in and coming out. We only get that montage of her during her unemployment phase there, where she's trying to figure out her life while she's unemployed and also a She-Hulk. Like there's so much happening in between there that now we're finally on to some meat and potatoes with Abomination, and it feels like there's like something happening now, but it just feels like they're still getting so much out of the way, like so much explaining, and I wish it felt less like explaining and more like exploring.
Well, we were talking last week, like, what will episode 2 feel like? This was the pilot. You can feel that this is the pilot here.
It 100% was, and that's why I feel like releasing the other episode before it and not with it did it a disservice, because it still left you feeling, when are we going to get things going here? Because we still learned a lot, but nothing has really happened yet other than her just becoming She-Hulk.
Well, I mean,
I know that you can pick it apart and you can make it. I know that you specifically can pick it apart and find meaning in a lot of this. But when you dumb things down, when you look at the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk, your big takeaway is Jennifer Walters is She-Hulk and she's a lawyer, and now she's doing superhero law. That's the gist of the first 2 episodes. That could have been 1 episode is all I'm saying, is that they're spreading it almost a little too thin and giving it that network sitcom format with like the half-hour feel, And
you don't like the half-hour?
No, because with the sitcom, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a mini arc to follow. But with this show, they're still following the same format they've done the whole time, where it's just one long narrative that's cut up into a bunch of pieces.
So far, yes.
So far.
And so episode 4, it sounds like, is a bottle episode, which I'm very excited about.
Okay.
That'll be fun. They have said that there are some Jessica Gao. I've been reading a bunch of stuff on this show because I fucking love it. And she's mentioned that episode 4 is kind of, she thinks is the one that everyone's going to love. And she mentions Wong, and she talks about a bottle episode where he interacts with probably, and I quote, the best MCU pairing ever. And I'm like, well, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. Rumors have said that Mr. Murdoch are supposed to show up within the first 5 episodes. I mean, we have friends who have seen the first 4 episodes. So like, I've thought about asking, but also I'm like, I don't know if I want to know. What does that sound? Is that my mic? Don't do that.
I'm glad you're hearing it too. I thought it was just me. Well, I get what you're saying, but I want to be excited about what I've already seen, not what's to come. And I feel like with this second episode, I really am enjoying what they're giving us. It's like a snap of your fingers, it's definitely not a show I'm staying up to watch that when it drops at 2 a.m. because I'm not staying up till 2 to watch 20 minutes, but
this is the perfect wake up show, by the way.
It is. Absolutely. It is. It's a great way to start the day because it's fun. It's lighthearted, but it's still captivating. It's bubbly. And you're right. Both times I've watched it the morning it's come out, like before work. And it is a very nice way to start the day. You're right.
It does put a smile on my face.
Yeah. And it's cool that you can do that with one of these shows. I like that they're positioning it as like a legal comedy, and they wanted to say it was like more of a sitcom and sort of mimic a little bit that network TV format of the weekly, half-hour structure. But it's still just another variant of these Disney Plus series where it's a long movie that's cut up into a bunch of episodes with a cliffhanger at the end of them, at the end of each one. So I am enjoying it. It's just, I think WandaVision really set high standards for the whole sitcom expectations I had. And I think maybe that's why, because like when we went into WandaVision, we didn't have any sort of answers to anything until week like 4 or 5. And with this show, they're like, we have to give you these answers right now, or you won't be able to focus, So it's weird that they took that approach this time when they were comfortable with a very different approach with earlier shows. So, but maybe that just means that the next 7 episodes will just be one after another, just banger after banger, and they're all amazing after this, And it really was just the first 2 episodes, they just had to explain all this stuff so they could get to all the fun stuff.
Yes. Concurred. Let's talk about the episode. That's what I want to talk about the episode, because I was writing notes right here at the end because I remembered a piece. I just watched the episode right before we hopped on. So
nice.
In the first half of House of the Dragon, Rock the Dragon Ball Z. Sorry. This show jumps right on in. It's the repercussions of that court scene. Basically, everybody knows the case got thrown out. She's lost her job and family dinner. God, did that sound terrible. Kidding, family. I love you. No, but in that family dinner, we get to meet Ched, who was mentioned last week. And I was like, who the hell is Ched?
Right.
Boy, if I don't feel called out right now with the long hair, red Hawaiian. No, seriously. I was like, oh, man, I hope Ched is like a dumbass. I'd like to play Ched. Damn, I would really love to play Ched, being dead honest with you. But it's beautiful how right away we're jumped right on into it. She's She-Hulk at the celebration of it all, really. And then she's drinking. Her boss comes up. I need to talk to you, Jin. Okay, sir. And then all of a sudden, he's like, no, be Jin. So she goes down and she's hammered, which is fantastic.
Really cool writing. I hope they do more stuff like that.
Yeah. Sorry, different metabolism. So she loses her job right then and there. She does a little carousel of looking for jobs, has to go to family dinner, where we find out that her trait is doing what I kind of do at times, which is just run the problem through from my in my head from beginning to conclusion, and then people don't get to speak. We see that, 3 times, I think, in this episode. And she does it with her dad, who is hilarious. We see, Bruce's mom, potentially. One of the actresses there is, I believe, Rebecca Black, maybe Aunt Becca. I believe her. Rebecca Black is definitely a singer, isn't it?
It's the artist of the infamous Friday song. So I don't know if that's Bruce Banner's mom, but
no, Rebecca something. Her last name is not Banner because of, in the comic she died, but in the MCU, I'm guessing divorce. Who knows? But she's we get a glimpse of her there, and then it's a bunch of amazing questions about the MCU. That Hawkeye guy, does he go pick up his arrows after? It seems like a liability. That's not a bad dad, by the way.
We've all been asking that question for years. I mean, this show is only answering fans' questions in the process.
Ooh, this show is fan service. Man, I keep looking to you on my left, but you're not there. There we go. This show is fan service. That's better. I can see your eyeballs now. Nice. And it immediately turns pretty much like the next day, basically. She's drinking at the bar, and Mr. Holloway comes up and, admits she had a winning case. They were 100% about to lose what they did. But because she turned into a superhuman, saved the jury's lives, kind of, running the gambit. It's a little bit prejudice. And she invited to work at JLK&H right away. Boom, Superhuman Law Division. Only hired her because she's a superhuman. She's the She-Hulk. They want the She-Hulk to be the head of the Superhuman Law Division.
They even threatened to fire her if she isn't She-Hulk at work. So like and I kind of liked that she was okay with that in the end, and she was wrestling with it, but she did end up taking the job. And her conversation with Bruce about that too was really fun because he's like, "You're calling me to tell me you're taking the job, aren't you?"
Yeah.
So that's another instance of what you mentioned, how she has to process, out loud. I really like that about her because I think she's going to lean really heavily on her fourth wall breaking for that when there's no one else around to bounce those ideas off of.
Yes. And boy, does it really seem like we're the other person inside Jin's head, by the way. I love that theory so damn much. I think that comes from Neebs. But we find out cool. It, right? I mean, it just makes sense. It just fits. I'd love to be inside She-Hulk's head. I'd love to live rent free there. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be great.
That was such a weird sentence. Why did I say that? Emil Blonsky.
I didn't know how to.
Yeah, I know. Emil Blonsky is out for parole. God, I don't even know how that comes off. I'm not going to think about it. He has 7 soul mates. No, I mean, he does actually, but I want to read because I want to jump right to it. He's changed his ways. You know, now he's something born, British raised, American on loan to the American government.
And he's off the serum. He can still turn into Abomination, but he states that he chooses not to, which we already know is a crock of shit.
Are you calling that Abomination character a croc? That is absolutely speciesist. You're making him a crocodile when he's obviously a fish, sir.
A fish.
Yeah.
Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, his face is like one of those Pokemons.
Honestly,
that made me sound really old.
One of those Pokemons.
Pokemon! Get off my lawn
goodness.
with your Pokemon cards.
Oh, that's a little tone deaf to all the Pokemon lovers out there. Speaking of tone deaf, I don't know how good of a transition that was, but Emil Blonsky is a self-proclaimed life guru now, and is also a poet. Yeah, and has apparently written a lot of haikus in his free time since he's been locked up for the better part of like 2 decades now. It feels like.
Yeah.
Because it's 2024 during She-Hulk, maybe 25 at the latest.
Yes, something along those lines.
Yeah, so it's been like 16, 17 years since the events of the Incredible Hulk in the MCU. So he's had a lot of free time. But Thomas, Marvel just gave us a little look into Abomination's haiku book. And let us read some of his poetry. So, Thomas, can you please grace us with Abomination's haikus?
Yes. It all came from She-Hulk's Twitter account. Highly recommend at She-Hulk official. Said 4,000 likes and they'll leak some of the haikus. It is now at 24,000 likes. My tiny ears hear the storm and stirrings of time, pain caused and carried. To the world I am an abomination, but to me I'm Emil. Abomination or rehabilitation, who are we to judge? It's lonely in here, though I don't see it that way. I have my soulmates. Glass walls surround me. Prison is what I am. Glass walls surround me. Prisoner is what I am. Yet inside, I'm free. Last one, I do believe. Have they posted another? They have not. If inside you feel a rage uncontrollable, just breathe. Namaste. Let me see if I can do that better. If inside you feel a rage uncontrollable, just breathe. Namaste. Better. I felt better about that second one.
That was good.
I got it to mildly rhyme. So he writes these, and this is what he plans to say and do in court. And she makes the joke, speak from the heart. And he goes, these are from the heart, Jen. Just like very like, that's rude. That's hurtful.
Very matter of fact. Like I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
The
what it
really
is.
interesting part about him is that he does kind of make you feel for him in this scene here. I mean, I went into it very defensive because why wouldn't you? You know, it's the Abomination. He was literally about to kill the Hulk. And like they love to say, he basically broke Harlem with the Hulk. Walking into this, I was ready for Jen to just see right through him immediately. But Blonsky actually did kind of present a good case for himself, because he's saying I was acting under the government's orders. You know, they shot me up with this, and that's what made me do all this stuff. And I thought I was going to be a super soldier like Captain America. You know, and you know, the Hulk is seen as a hero, you know, and I'm locked up in this cage. And
it's not fair, Jin.
It really did. I mean, and for all the people that don't watch The Incredible Hulk, I still turn it on from time to time. But I know the majority of people really, really don't enjoy that movie.
Yes.
And so for most people, that's probably a pretty obscure event that they've only seen once or twice. it would be really funny if this show actually convinces the majority of fans that Blonsky is redeemable.
Yeah.
This would be a great way to pull the rug out from under the majority audience who hasn't seen this character in like 15 years.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I haven't seen him since The Incredible Hulk. I saw that in theaters, bud. Like, I did not, in real fat, like small 30-second side tangent. I had no freaking clue that they were connected, Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk, until I sat there and watched it and realized, because I kind of noticed the Stark Industries like briefly on some of the equipment, but it wasn't registering because I'm so at that point I was not used to looking for those Easter eggs, because normally they didn't matter. They were just like, oh, look at that, that's cool, and it means nothing.
Right.
But in this case, it didn't dawn on me until Iron Man walks in and goes, we're putting together a team, and I'm like, holy shit, tacos.
Right.
They're
because
doing
when Nick Fury showed up at the end of Iron Man, that was one thing. But then when that main character showed up in another movie, then you knew, oh, they're getting the ball rolling here.
Yeah. That is when, because I mean, if Nick Fury had shown up with The Incredible Hulk, I'd have been like, what? Right? What? But Iron Man shows up, it's like, what? This movie's been out for 2 months and he's already in another one? That's insane.
Exactly.
So very exciting, and that was more than 30 seconds. But we've come full circle because Emil Blonsky is Abomination, and everything he said is true. Thunderbolt Ross was 100%. You know, it kind of bothers me that he's the one who's all like the Sokovia Accords and Infinity War, and he's the asshole who made the Abomination.
Yep.
Dick.
Yep. And that line specifically where he says, if I misplaced a couple, megaton nukes, I'd have hell to pay for it, or I'm sure I'd have to answer for it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Blonsky is his making. Like, that's his creation. And watching The Incredible Hulk, not only is he complicit, he is administering the drugs that creates the Abomination. Blonsky volunteers, but it is 100% up to General Ross to administer that and to take him in that program. That's all him. And if William Hurt hadn't tragically passed away earlier this year, I really would have liked to see his response to what they're going to do with Abomination going forward, because that could put him on really thin ice, especially with the position he has now, trying to enforce the Sokovia Accords. It would have been so cool to see how he maybe would have stepped in and tried to take control of that Abomination situation. Yeah. That would be an amazing band name, the Abomination Situation.
Okay.
No, that's terrible. Second time I said it. Never mind.
I liked it better the second time. So how about that?
It would have been really cool to see General Ross have to answer for that in some way, because he really kind of got off clean on that one. So that can't get everything we want. Obviously, there are bigger things than seeing William Hurt do that. But Abomination, this puts him in a really interesting spot, because they do kind of leave you in a spot where you want to side with Jen and think that it is a good idea to defend this guy, because now she actually has a case to build.
Mm-hmm.
And now that promises legal comedy, lawyer show. And that's what we've been waiting for. Is, like I said, we liked seeing, the writing with the creativity and how She-Hulk and Jennifer have different metabolisms. I also want to see some law stuff written into this too. I want to see the actual legal, ramifications of everything that's happening, and see how it affects the real world. I don't know if you noticed in this episode, there were headlines playing on the TV that were trying to brush off Titania's attack on the courtroom with extremely low blood sugar as the reason for her outburst. And I think it's hilarious that they can so casually try to write these things off, because that's how it happens in the real world. It's traumatic and terrifying for the people that are there in the moment. And then almost immediately it gets spun out of control. And it's a story that is hardly even recognizable to someone who actually witnessed it,
Yes.
Because that wasn't just low blood sugar,
No, man, that was intent.
Right, exactly. And She-Hulk saved their lives. So it's interesting to see how they're downplaying the Titania stuff too. I'm really interested to see how Yes, so far, exactly. I want to see what's going to progress there.
I very much love where Jen lands after meeting Emil Blonsky. She, and he does make, as soon as he drops that the U.S. government did that to him, then he is a victim in this situation, and he should be let free because he's being, we created you, now we're locking you up because we can. That's not fair. That's not justice. So, especially all this time with like no parole and not getting out, it's very important that he get out there and he do his thing. And then that leads to her calling Bruce Banner.
Right.
And we've also skipped the man with claws at bar. Right.
That's right. There were just so many Easter eggs packed into this.
Let's just talk the rest of the plot since it's not too long of a plot to talk about. She calls Bruce. Bruce laughs that she's She-Hulk, says it's perfect, and mentions that, Blonsky sent him a really heartfelt haiku, and they talked about it and kind of made their peace. And he says, it was a long time ago, Jen. I'm a different person now, literally. And we finally get a call back to a body swap of Mark Ruffalo and Edward Norton Jr., which Jen even responds to by breaking the fourth wall and going, ha, and then going back to the phone call. But then we find out that Bruce cannot come to LA anytime soon. He's kind of out of the area. Turns out he's in a Sicarian spaceship flying, I'm guessing, to Sakaar. And so the question is, will that play into shape later this season, or is he gone for the rest of the season?
Well, it's important to note he's clearly going on his own, by his own volition. He's not being forced to do that. He looked very comfortable in that cruiser. Mm-hmm. I got to get whatever phone plan he's on, because he was about to hit hyperspeed and he was talking on the phone with his cousin. Do you think we'll see him again before the end of the season?
I don't know. Having known that this was the pilot, and then what the pilot is the whatchamacallit, the episode 8, right? Yeah. Maybe he shows up in the finale, right? It's kind of set up that way. Maybe he doesn't. Because it feels weird to be like, here's Bruce Banner leaving Earth, and then him showing back up, right? Unless it's very specifically done.
In that episode where it showed back up, it showed the ship he left on, and it said, I'm going to have to follow up on that ship. So they kind of did close that loop, though. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it kind of fully explains why he's gone. So, maybe he won't show up by the finale. If he's off-world again, there's a good chance we won't see him for a very good chunk of time. Because there's not What?
He can be in other people's stuff, and rumor has it 2025 is going to have World War Hulk. So
rumor has it.
Because in 2025, I believe there is no longer Universal. Universal no longer is able to first deny a Hulk film from being made without being involved.
Got it. So they have to do something with the IP, or they're going to lose it.
No, it's more
situation.
No, Marvel owns Hulk and owns the film distributions, if I remember right. But because they started out with Universal, I do believe, I think it's Paramount for all the other movies and Universal for the Hulk specifically. The Hulk, they can deny that movie being made.
No, Universal does still own the film rights to Hulk. They just lend them out to the MCU. So if they wanted to go make their own Hulk movie, they could do it right now.
Universal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they finally let Marvel Studios do it in 2008 because they couldn't figure out how to do it. So but since then, Universal still hasn't forfeited those rights. They've just lent them, similar to how Sony does it with Spider-Man.
Ooh, to be fair, I don't think that's right.
What?
I'm not sure that is correct, because in the same way how Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver could be in Age of Ultron and also in another movie at the same time with the X-Men movies, I think he's one of those crossovers where if he is in another one of these, if he's in another person's film, it kind of counts the same way as an Avengers film where he's a main character in, because everything that he's been in, he's basically been a main character. I do believe is how it works out.
So here we go. As of This is from actually the direct as of August 13th. So this was just over 2 weeks ago. Disney may regain Hulk movie rights soon. Reddit user, I'm not going to try to say that, Video Artist, shared evidence that indicates Disney may regain the distribution rights to the Hulk in June of 23, so next summer, allowing them to produce a new solo movie based on the Green Avenger. They continue on saying Universal currently owns distribution rights to any movie starring Hulk or Namor in the leading role, meaning they receive a significant share of the profits currently. An SEC filing from 2006 notes Universal Studios' agreement to distribute The Incredible Hulk under the same terms as a similar deal with Paramount. Universal Studios has agreed to distribute Marvel's film The Incredible Hulk and sequels on essentially the same terms as those on which Paramount has agreed to distribute the other films financed and produced under the film facility for an initial period of 15 years commencing on the initial theatrical exhibition of such picture. So that 2008 film that they made kicked off a 15-year countdown, I guess, of temporary rights, it looks like. Or, here, they explain it. They say when the Incredible Hulk hit theaters in 2008, the 15-year period indicates Disney will regain distribution rights to the character in June of 23, at which point Marvel Studios would be able to begin production on a Hulk movie that Disney themselves would distribute. So, okay, got it. So, okay. So, after that collaboration with Universal, that's when that 15-year window started. And so they had 15 years where they profit from any use of the Hulk. And then after that 15 years, it looks like they forfeit the rights to Marvel. And Marvel gets to basically do whatever they want after that. So you're right. As soon as next summer, they probably won't announce it before next summer because they want to make sure they actually have everything in order first. You know, they don't want to go making any empty promises. We've seen studios do that many a times, looking at you, Warner Bros. I think that we could totally see something like a World War Hulk movie pop up in the next couple of years. There's plenty of spots open on that Phase 6 timeline.
Yes,
and there's even room in that Phase 5 timeline if they wanted to squeeze a couple more projects in. Maybe not theatrical releases, but if they wanted to somehow make this a limited series similar to what they're doing with She-Hulk to build up to a movie event, they would be able to do that too.
I think She-Hulk's going to be having recurring seasons. I think it has the potential to have recurring seasons. Excuse me. But I was thinking Secret Invasion
world for it.
would be the one that would have the real limited series vibes. I think
Secret Invasion.
I think World War Hulk would be like a Secret Invasion style show.
Got it.
Where it's just big and massive and crazy and
just
lots of CGI.
Yes, those VFX artists are shaking in their boots. But yeah, no, dude. As of next summer, you heard it here first. Well, you heard it from the direct first, and then you heard it from TCR on LTA. We might be getting a World War Hulk movie sometime very soon, or at least something with the Hulk. But it seems like this is a really good place to start because people are responding well to a Hulk project. When was the last time you could say that? Never? Maybe on TV in the 80s?
Yeah, I was going to say the show was pretty dope.
It's been a while.
It's been 84 years. No, I think it's been longer, honestly, because it was in the 70s.
Will we see Lou Ferrigno in this?
No. I would be surprised if we did.
Okay. Because we saw him in Incredible Hulk, so he kind of already did his MCU thing, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a security guard, right? Yeah.
Right. Fun fact, the guy that he delivered pizzas to in that scene is the teacher of Peter Parker in the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy.
Yeah, it's very true.
I love that.
Yep. See? That movie mattered.
I know. And everyone hates on it. I know it's not one of the better MCU films, but it is the best Hulk movie. And it is a lot of fun to watch in its own right. So
it's not even a comparison. Have you seen 2003 Hulk?
Yeah, no, we don't need to talk about that.
But I loved that movie when I was 12. And then it changed. There you are. So that was the plot of this week. We spent more time talking about the plot, I think, than the plot actually happened. But we did go on a huge 5-minute rights.
We talked more about Hulk than we did about She-Hulk, but
that's your fault.
I really am enjoying. No, it isn't. I'm really enjoying how Jen is just carrying us from scene to scene, because I just love watching her just interact with everything. She doesn't, especially with the security guard when she's walking into the prison. She's consistently just bouncing all these sarcastic little jabs off of him, and he's like, "Ma'am, this is a prison," and she goes, "Right," and she walks in, and I love that she's just kind of always on her toes with the humor, and I can totally see how Bruce gets so irritated with her, because if someone was just constantly, jabbing at me with that level of sarcasm and irony, I'd probably lose it. Man, I really love her relationship with it's Nikki, right? Her friend.
Yes.
Yeah, they are awesome together. I love it.
I want to give a shout out to Pug.
Pug.
I'm trying to remember.
Pug.
What? Poopy Pug. Oh my God, that's amazing, dude. I am trying. He was the villain. Spoiler alert, by the way, here, kids. He was the villain in season 5 of Arrow. Yes. He played Adrian Chase. And the actor is Josh Segarra. So when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, don't trust him." And he's like, "Hi, I'm Pug. Best place for pooping." I was like,
don't worry. You can totally trust him.
Oh yeah, no. As soon as he said that, best place for pooping, I was like, "That's my dude."
Yes,
that guy.
Pug is great. He's one of the best characters from the She-Hulk comics. I really like how they introduced him. He's going to be a lot of fun to see around the office.
Yeah, I really did love that, and he's just a regular human. I almost said regular human bartender. Shout out What We Do in the Shadows. No, he's just a regular lawyer. No big deal. He's just there to do the job, and I very much love that. Has a small himbo vibe a little bit, but we'll see what how it shakes out going forward. But yeah, this show is great. I love it. And I'm excited to see where the Emil Blonsky side of things goes, as well as if we ever jump back to Bruce Banner. But I feel like Titania is going to be around a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have Daredevil coming. And Wong is going to show up. And at this point, I got a feeling Wong is going to be like the linchpin of the case for Emil Blonsky, because he's going to be like, "I've been rehabilitating him. This is where he's gotten all these things. I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. I saved this planet, blah, 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 blah. Doctor Strange answers to me type thing. And they'll be like, "Oh, okay." If he's not already the most famous superhero on the planet at this point.
Well, yeah, because I mean, we don't know how many times Abomination left prison, but Jennifer could totally use that and say, "Yeah, but he came back." You're right. He got out, but he chose to come back, and he's finding ways to fix himself. And maybe not all of that could be done here, and he needed to branch out. But yeah, I am really excited to see how Wong plays into all of this. I'm also excited to see how Jennifer's actual ability as a lawyer plays into it, because we met her as a prosecutor, and now she's serving as a defendant for this guy. So she's kind of switched roles from what she was doing beforehand. It'll be interesting to see how her expertise might kind of lend her a hand there. Maybe she'll be able to stay a step ahead of whoever is going after Abomination, because they ended the episode by Emil Blonsky saying, "I don't really switch into the Abomination anymore," and then footage leaking from Shang-Chi of his cage fight with Wong. So someone is trying to hurt Emil's case right now. They're trying to prevent him from getting out, and apparently they've got some friends in some pretty low places, because that video is not just floating around anywhere. So that'll be super interesting. I don't think we'll get to see Zhai Ling or anyone from Shang-Chi, but it would be pretty cool if we did. Man, yeah, we could probably talk all day about all the MCU crossovers they could do with this show, because they are dipping into a lot right now. Real quick, I just want to touch on those Easter eggs that you mentioned earlier, because there's 2 of them.
Yes,
and
thank you.
I'm really happy about one, and you're really excited about another. So what the first one, very, very broad, Man fights in bar with claws, basically. Man gets into a fight in a bar with claws, with metal claws.
Yes.
Dude.
Obviously, it's Logan. Obviously, that's Weapon X. Obviously, it's Wolverine.
Yeah, man. I am so to hear that. It immediately made me think of that scene in the Wolverine after those hunters kill that bear and he tracks them back to the bar and gets in a fight with them. I texted you shortly after I noticed that and said, dude, the Wolverine bar scene. And you're like, what if that became MCU canon? It's a long shot. It's a long shot. But what if we learned that the Wolverine happened post Endgame? They would have so much explaining to do, but it would be really cool if they somehow found a way to make Hugh Jackman's Wolverine canon. I would be sad because I feel like they're going to introduce their own Wolverine, and I'm excited about that. But I do love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and that would mean we have to see him again.
Yeah.
But Wolvie, do you think this is just a fun Easter egg, or do you think there's actually something to look forward to here?
Yes to both.
Yes to both. All right. It is a fun Easter egg, and
it
we're
is,
looking forward. All right.
I didn't even notice it. I just saw people tweeting about Wolverine.
I caught it on Twitter afterwards.
What is happening? And someone posted the picture, and I'm like, oh my God, he's alive.
He's alive.
He's alive.
But the headline that was directly underneath it was, in my opinion, even more interesting because it's finally and by the way, I'm still not satisfied with where we're finally seeing this discussed, but finally someone has acknowledged the giant celestial sticking out of the Indian Ocean. It's been almost a whole year since the movie Eternals came out.
I got a question. Why is there a giant man sticking out from the ocean?
Because he almost cracked the world in half. They were trying to birth a celestial. And everyone's just like, yeah, well, I disappeared for 5 years, so what else is new? You know, it's like, show me something I haven't seen. Who knows what these people have experienced at this point? But the most acknowledgement that a celestial sticking out of the earth gets now is just another subheadline on like a BuzzFeed article. Like there's no urgency at all anymore. The humans they've given up. They're just like, there's people from Asgard living here now. There were 3 Spider-Mans at one point. Doctor Strange keeps doing all that weird stuff. Hulk's jumping on and off the earth every few years now. There's so much happening that I feel like it's really difficult for a typical, like, just a civilian just to live a normal life anymore. Because you might think you're having dinner tonight with your family, but what if they all get snapped and dusted away for 5 years?
Or what if they're all Skrulls? Sorry,
they're all
you're not all ready for that. My bad.
I can't wait. I can't wait for Secret Invasion.
Dude, this is so crazy how all these amazing things that we read in comics are now happening. And here's the crazier thing. The stuff I just read, by the way, all I did was read comics on the plane, and I read like a metric fuck ton of comics. Like I finished a whole run of 2 years of Thor. So yeah. Nice. Granted, it's only 25 issues, but I read like another 25 issues before that and other stuff after. So I've been like grinding on that Marvel, earning that Marvel Unlimited
subscription. There you go.
Thank you. That's the word. It's been a long life. But like there's so many cool things that I'm always like, oh, they'll never do that in movies. And it's happening. It's happening. We had an Infinity War, which honestly kind of like it's not the same Infinity War, but damn if it isn't good enough to hold the name, man. Yeah. Like possibly one of the greatest Marvel films of all time. Like there's a lot of argument there, but
they did that.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy to be where we are in the
there's so much happening with Marvel, so much to be excited about, and we're not even close to being done talking about it tonight.
We're not but before we can do that, do you have any final thoughts on the She-Hulk?
I'm going to say it one more time so I don't just gripe about it every week, but I am just going to say once more that this runtime issue is going to continue to be a problem. I feel like it could just be because these first couple episodes are all exposition, and then now we're going to get into the meat of it, which is more of a sitcom-esque type show. But if it's going to follow that exposition, action, super heavy emotional episode and then finale, it's going to be weird in a half-hour format because it does still feel rushed at this point. There's so much happening in these episodes that you don't get to sit and simmer with it. So I am a little concerned about that, but that might be my only complaint, because while I feel that way, I don't think I've enjoyed the first 2 episodes of any Marvel show this much so far.
Wow.
Because Moon Knight was the best premiere by far, but the second episode, it kind of dipped a little bit for me. This kept that tone very well through both of its first episodes. So I think She-Hulk might be my favorite in terms of like the first 2 episodes of a Disney Plus series. So even though I am a little worried about the structure of it, I am very excited to see where they're going to go, because we still have almost two months of this show left. You know, we're going to be watching this well into October. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it ends right there around my birthday there. Nice. All right. I love this show. I love the character She-Hulk. She's always been one of my favorite visual characters. Like, you can look at any She-Hulk drawing, like, that She-Hulk, dope. I like everything she's wearing. Like, it's always a cool suit, or just wearing, a business suit, or just like wearing a shredded up shirt, like lost all the sleeves because she busted through them.
Except her work, the new suit that she wore to work, she can transform in that one, and it doesn't.
You see how big it is on her?
Yeah, it is. It's very tight, but I think it might be like spandex based. I think she might have redone her wardrobe.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, probably. Honestly,
she's pretty tiny when she's not She-Hulk, so it's cool to see that she's able to keep her clothes intact. But
unlike Bruce, what an exhibitionist that kid is. But I very much love this show. Something about this character, which I never read She-Hulk comics, by the way. I never read them. I wish I had. Like, these are amazing. If the show is fantastic. This is my kind of show.
You can and you should, because it's.
I got the Unlimited app.
There you go. Dan Slott has my favorite She-Hulk run. I so far it does give off pretty similar vibes to the show. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
All right. Well, now it's time for everyone's favorite segment after the break.
They're going to say the ads.
Sweet dreams they placed on me inside my mind. Chance my truth, twist the past, my memories are fading fast. Am I still missed? You understand? Who do you want me to be? Am I still missed?
Join author Gary Zeiger for an animatic short film based on his breakaway Stingray novel series. Watch this animatic short based on the novel Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever at stingrayseries.com. In Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever, Captain Epsilon is putting the band back together to rescue his protege's little sister from the evil conglomerate, while keeping his state-of-the-art warship, Stingray, out of their hands. Watch as the adventure unfolds in the groundbreaking animatic short at stingrayseries.com. Then, join the crew of Stingray with the next novel in the series, Stingray Prophecy, where Captain Epsilon and Dr. Zubre are pivotal players in an ancient prophecy. Can they reunite the people of two worlds before they destroy each other? To learn more, visit stingrayseries.com.
What, the news? Finally, we have some news on the first family of Marvel, the Fantastic Four, is allegedly going to be directed by Matt Shackman, best known in the MCU for WandaVision.
Yeah,
how you feeling about that, Mr.? Yeah, how you feeling there, Mr. WandaVision enthusiast?
I know. Yeah. Speaking of, it is exciting actually to see this, but it's also a little puzzling just because they've been taking their time so much, and some sources are saying there's no way they'll have a decision before like Labor Day, or there's still a large mix of candidates. They're trying to keep their options open. There's some big names in the mix. It would be really cool if they said, F that, we're going with the guy that gave us the first ever Marvel Disney Plus series and led us to, kicking off that new era of Marvel. Like I said with WandaVision, he did set a pretty high standard for the structure and the I guess tone of that form of storytelling. And it was, in essence, it had a lot of moving pieces and a lot of elements, but it was ultimately a story about family. And I think it'd be really cool if he took this on, because he kind of already showed us that he can do that. So yeah, I think this is pretty cool. What do you think?
I think it is a damn good move. I was a big fan of WandaVision. I'm looking at his IMDb now. Oh my God, 43 episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
hell yeah, that is
amazing. A total of 56 directors, mostly TV, but
yes.
there are actually there's a lot of notable
elite.
I mean, he's done an episode of The Boys, I believe, in season 1. He's done The Good Wife, which is super popular. Grace and Frankie, I know people love.
Yeah, 2 episodes of Game of Thrones. Sir?
Psych, he did 5 episodes. I know you know Psych. Mad Men,
yeah.
New Girl, House, The Good Guys, Ugly Betty. There's so many iconic TV shows on here that he's had a hand in at least directing 1 episode. But I most recently and most familiarly is WandaVision. And it's pretty cool to see a director take the jump from a Disney Plus series to an actual feature film as big as the Fantastic Four. Because I mean, from the way they're positioning it, the Fantastic Four is going to be a huge piece in kicking off Phase 6. And I'm assuming they'll have a large, if not largest, role in the Avengers movies that follow at the back end of that phase too.
Concur.
So to see that he's going to help bring that to life, after the amazing things he did with WandaVision, I'm really excited about this.
I'm a big fan. The family aspect of WandaVision is probably my favorite on the rewatch side of things. I mean, I loved it the first time, but going back and rewatching it, it's what stands out to me is like, that's what that show's really about. It's a sitcom, but all sitcoms are about a family, and kind of excites me about She-Hulk and seeing her family. That was pretty funny to me. But I definitely think that it's a good choice. I'm waiting for it to be official, and we're less than 2 weeks away from D23, so we'll probably find out there, along with the rest of the Disney Plus Phase 6. I mean, the Phase 6, and I think we get some Disney Plus reveals.
Yeah,
which
we'll get to I think a lot of those empty slots in that Phase 6 timeline will get, at least a few of them will be revealed. And speaking of timeline, Marvel has come out with so many projects, especially in the last 2 years. I mean, just since Phase 4 started, they've almost doubled the amount of content that they've released since the MCU began in 2008. And we learned with shows like Loki and WandaVision and movies like Spider-Man No Way Home that timelines are super important. And if things are going to happen in a chronological order, and if they're going to happen in one cohesive universe, and then branch out into all of these different timelines and different universes, someone would have to keep track of that. And the direct has learned in an exclusive interview with She-Hulk's head writer and producer that the MCU actually has a person whose job is just that. Is they are the MCU timekeeper. They're the people who keep track of the timeline, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it seems necessary at this point because you can't just go to Disney Plus when you need an answer.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's become much more complex than that.
It has. But I'm very excited. I'm very sad that I'm not that guy or girl that gets to do this.
It's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, time is a flat circle, and I've been preaching from the rooftops of this podcast that everything after Spider-Man Far From Home was going to be non-linear storytelling, and I love that shit.
Yeah.
Here we are. People are really... I just read an article that the post-credit scene of Phase 3 didn't really make sense. The post-credit scene of Phase 4 also didn't really make sense. And now it's getting worse. Stop making that sound, technology.
Where's that coming from?
I don't know. I think that's my mic.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, honestly. Maybe that's my cue to shut up and move on. Fact is, I read an article. People are just like, the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi makes no sense. And it was a confusing thing. And it made... like it was a setup for something that didn't matter, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It didn't create confusion. It opened speculation.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's about. So
I think that's probably the coolest part is that people actually get to have, even if it is temporary, they kind of have a say in how this stuff goes going forward, because we're back in that seat where we're coming up with theories for everything now, and we're trying to figure everything out. Phase 4 did a really good job of giving us a whole new sandbox to play in, really, because now it's not just one linear timeline. It's not just the mainline MCU anymore. We've been introduced to whole other universes, and we even have names for them now. And some characters we left there with a super interesting story to tell. Joining us in the live chat, the legend of the traveling TARDIS. Good evening, says, how many phases does the MCU have? Well, first they said, I smell geek and comics, LOL. Yes, you will only find those two items almost exclusively on LightsThunderAction, but we did talk a little football earlier. How many phases does the MCU have? Officially, we're in the 4th phase. They announced what looks like a full slot for Phase 5 at Comic-Con, and also showed us the first few pieces of Phase 6. So we're in Phase 4, and they've promised 2 more. This is one of my favorite questions, also from the Legend of Traveling TARDIS. Do you think Marvel is getting saturated and that people will lose interest? First of all, yes. But I think with the Disney Plus side of things is why that will happen, because the movie structure will never fail. And Thor: Love and Thunder, to many people, was not the best Thor movie, but it still beat Thor Ragnarok at the box office. So a Marvel movie will always pull people into the movie theaters. Yes. I think it's the streaming side where you're starting to lose some people, because originally you thought you didn't have to see it to get the movies. That was the implication. And then Multiverse of Madness happened, and if you didn't do your homework and watch WandaVision, you wouldn't have understood a good chunk of that movie. So I think we'll probably see that happen in the next year or so, where we'll really see whether or not people are going to keep up with the Disney Plus side of things, because Multiverse of Madness is really the only movie we've seen that have had that type of effect, you know? Thomas, what do you think? Do you think it's oversaturation, or do you think this is just more opportunity for growth?
More opportunity for growth. I mean, until Black Panther, every main character in every movie, was based around a white person.
Yeah.
Until Captain Marvel, it was all male. Mm-hmm. So now we have Wanda's gotten her own show and been the main villain in a tentpole movie. She-Hulk is now leading a series. Miss Marvel, a Pakistani young girl living in New Jersey, who's also a superhero with science with dimensional capabilities is
Yeah.
now on your television, and it's setting up to lead into the Marvels, Captain Marvel's sequel film. So
That's a good point. But will it follow that same trend, with WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness? Because you're right, Miss Marvel's got her own show now. But I remember you telling me that it had historically low ratings compared to the other Disney Plus shows. So
that's because white people suck. No, it's genuinely because like nobody knew what was going on, and it was coming on the same time as Kenobi. So there's a lot going against it, especially when it's coming out the same day as Kenobi. As you now see with She-Hulk, it's on Thursdays because they found out we shouldn't do that with Star Wars and Marvel. Don't cross the streams. They learned from Ghostbusters. Too late, but they still learned. I think it's just opportunity for growth and expansion. And if you're confused because you didn't watch a show, all that means is you now can go to Disney Plus and watch it at your convenience because it's already over. You want to binge it? Go binge it. You want to go week to week? Hang out with us.
That's a good point. You can always go back and see it afterward to gain a better understanding. But it is also, you're right. That's a tough fence to walk because on one side you have, now you have all this extra content to dive into after you see the movie because you'll have questions. But then you have the other side of, I want to know what's happening while I'm watching this movie. What's happening here? So, that's a really good question. But I think the only reason people are really asking is because we now have a new faction of the MCU on, the streaming side of things. So, very long-winded answer to that our comment from Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. One last one. Thomas, congratulations on your movie. We were just talking about that. I'm going to be going to see it because it's in town at one of my local theaters, and I'm super excited. But
you're making everyone jealous.
Back to the topic at hand. Marvel is now paying someone solely for the purpose of keeping track of where everything is in the MCU as they build it. The director or head writer, producer, She-Hulk, confirmed that obviously She-Hulk is post-Endgame. And she said there's actually a Marvel person whose job it is to trace the timeline of everything. And so they had to check with him a lot about where the timing is, which is interesting. And so it's like the show is a few years after Endgame. There was a little pause there. It makes me think that maybe the timeline will actually be super relevant to this story coming up, especially now that they're tying in Shang-Chi to this and Wong. Wong, we've seen a lot. So we're going to have to figure out where he is in his journey right now because he's been in like every other project for the past year, it feels like. It's only been like twice or three times, but like he's been around a lot. But the direct went on to add that this isn't the first time the subject of timeline keeping has come up in the MCU. Obviously, fans are always asking these questions. So they said back when he was promoting Spider-Man Homecoming, director John Watts revealed that he was shown an actual scroll, which Marvel used to keep everything in line with one another. The full quote says, "There's an actual scroll that they unrolled for me. One of my producers, Eric Carroll, it was his first job at Marvel to work on a timeline and see where things line up and where things didn't quite line up. Like, oh, that's when Captain America is born, things like that." He said it's very long. It's the most amazing thing because it starts, honestly, at the beginning of time. I don't remember specifically, but I think it has something to do with Thor, as he laughs. And he said it's truly an amazing document. So Feige is also cited saying, at some point they're going to publish a timeline and see what, where everything lines up. He said he's not trying to confuse anyone. He just wants to see, where everything is connected. So they do probably have a version of that written up. It's just not public yet. The closest we can get to it is that chronological order that they put on Disney Plus, where you can actually go project by project and follow it on that timeline. But do you think it would be helpful to have a more concrete, like maybe like a short book of events that walk you through like the chronological timeline of the MCU, or do you even think it's necessary? I think it would just give people an avenue to just pick apart the movie or the TV show they're watching.
They should have a book about all the MCU.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
if you do that, you're spoiling everything that has to do with time travel and Kang.
Oh, so you're saying that this scroll might include events that we haven't seen yet?
I'm sorry, the beginning of time, we've definitely not seen that. The Eternals were on there. We definitely didn't see that until recently. Oh, Big Daddy Kevin Feige is 100% thought out a whole universe. And he took it from the Marvel Comics. So I'm not very surprised at all by this. When they mentioned the Eternals were on there and another thing was on there, and it's
true. We just met Eternity.
Big. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. So nothing has been made public yet. It probably won't be. It's probably not something that we'll see anytime soon, at least not until these next couple phases are done.
Yes.
But it would be cool to release some sort of promo for, Avengers 5 or 6 that shows, the road leading to Secret Wars, and it's a full, timeline, or even Kang Dynasty, because it's going to be all about time. It would be really cool to see them release some sort of public timeline for everyone to follow, sort of like they did with the Infinity Stones during their Endgame promotion, where it showed, I think they've even done it as recently as a couple months ago, where they'll post a chronological timeline of each Infinity Stone and show where it's been in each movie it popped up in. It would be cool to see them do that for characters or events, or even just a full Marvel timeline from start to finish. But it's cool to see that they have someone actually just doing that, because there have been a couple continuity errors in years past, and now's the time where you want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Very much so. I love that you said now's the time. Very good joke, sir. Very good. Bravo. Let's jump over to a more confusing studio and some interesting, I guess, news with Ezra Miller having a positive meeting with the studio over Flash plans.
Yeah. Does positive mean he didn't set anything on fire, or is it more than that? Because I mean, the bar has been set pretty low for this person.
Not wrong. It seems that, they had a very positive meeting with them on Wednesday with the new Warner Brothers film execs.
The new guys.
The new kids on the block, Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdi. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the conversation centered on how the actor is still committed to the movie, slated June 23rd, 23, as well as apologizing to bringing negative attention to the production and the company. They have agreed to enter counseling and seek help for their mental struggles.
Yeah,
which is great. I appreciate that move a lot, just for for their own sake. That's amazing. But also, kind of sprinkled in on this is that every DC movie has been pushed from this year except for Black Adam.
Right.
Every single one.
Well,
because of
afford it.
Yeah, because of Warner Brother issues, which we'll complain to Warner Brothers and I guess in our next segment.
Yeah.
But I'm happy. It's also been called yell if you've heard this before. The best rated, the best critic score, or whatever, since The Dark Knight, or whatever it is. Best screening score since The Dark Knight. Getting better reviews, the best reviews since The Dark Knight. Okay. Sure. That still means The Dark Knight is the tentpole, the measuring stick. And if that's the case, then that means these movies are getting better with time. However, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's true, sir. Not to be that guy, but
I don't know. I don't know. I think that this is another financial situation for them that they wish they didn't have, because nothing about this is actually encouraging. This just looks like someone wrote down on a piece of paper a bunch of stipulations in order for Ezra to continue being affiliated with this film. This looks like someone sat down in a room and said, we need Miller to do this, this, and this, and then we can move forward with this movie. And this is just that checklist. He had a very positive meeting. They sat down with Ezra. Ezra, are you still committed to this movie that you are the lead star in, that you signed a contract for? Yes? Check. Ezra, are you sorry for all of the bad behavior that you had over the past year so you can still be involved in this movie? Yes. Check. It doesn't, there's nothing here that actually indicates there will be a real change. It just means the studio's finally trying to get on top of it. Because they could have had this conversation with Ezra a year ago. You know what I mean?
Could they have?
Why not? As soon as the first incident came up of him choke slamming a fan, they could have sat down and said, hey, take it easy.
What I mean is, did anybody, those people are gone now. So
I see what you mean. So you're saying that old Warner Bros. Would never have done anything about it. And now that there's new leadership, they're saying, well, this is a mess. We have to do something about this.
Kind of.
You're right.
That's where
it seems like crisis management. And I'm glad they're trying to release this movie, because it would be a shame if they had to shelve another one. But I don't know if I'll be seeing this movie. So
wow. Intriguing. I can
could
see
you
why,
support
honestly.
it? Because I can't justify giving this movie money, not with who's affiliated right now. It is nice to see that Warner Bros. is turning a new leaf with the DC franchise. But, I mean, if this movie's not going to matter in the long run anyway, if that full reboot is going to happen, this is just going to be another one that gets brushed under the rug at the end of the day.
Probably just happens in this movie.
The reset?
Yeah.
It would be the perfect spot to do it.
It would be. I'm excited for the Flash movie potentially coming out. I probably will still go see it no matter what, because, I mean, it's the Flash, dude. I love the Flash.
I know, it really does stink that this is
if the trailers are hype, I'll go see it, but I've been fooled before. Speaking of being fooled before, apparently Warner Brothers fooled themselves into thinking they could stop Twitter from yelling at them, because they reportedly, according to Variety, privately, the studio insiders have lamented that Zack Snyder's Justice League should have never happened. Rather than quieting the unceasing online campaigning to release the Snyder Cut, the 4-hour HBO Max feature only further entrenched the vocal and extremely online Snyderverse fan base in opposition to the leadership at the studio in general and at DC in particular.
Man, it sounds like they're talking about the Proud Boys here. It is funny how that this new leadership it doesn't say it's new leadership. It just says insiders. But it is funny that they're all kind of like, why did we do that? You know, because thank you. Why are we doing this? Why did we give in to this in the first place? This is something that I've agreed with all along. I'm glad to see that someone there at least agrees with me, because my favorite thing about this acquisition of Warner Bros. Is that they're looking at all of this stuff that Warner Bros. Was doing, and they're going, how are you making money off of this? You left us with almost nothing to work with here. And this is a shining example of this, because here's a hot take. If it wasn't Batgirl, if Zack Snyder's Justice League was being made during the acquisition, that would have gotten shelved. And they would have said, never mind, we're not releasing that. There's no viable reason for us to do it.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that this new leadership would never have even entertained it. And even if they acquired Warner Bros. During the release of it, like the making of it, they would have shut that down, because that they didn't benefit from it at all. They were just giving in to fans because they had nothing better to offer. This was in a time where there was nothing happening for the DC universe anyway, except for Wonder Woman 1984 that was on the way. And
this was only for HBO Max. This was like to be like, subscribe to HBO Max.
Right.
We're releasing in a week, but in a year we got this. That was kind of the whole push for it.
It was like their Mandalorian. It was supposed to be the big selling point for their streaming service, it was the exact.
Don't compare something.
No, but it was.
It's a year later. The selling point for getting the service right away. Because when it launched, they had nothing. They had a box of scraps.
Don't compare them to Tony Stark either. Oh my gosh. So much blasphemy tonight. So Warner Bros. Apparently there's a lot of people on the inside that are like, man, that whole Snyderverse thing, I really wish we never would have done anything about that. But I know it says that it just further entrenched, the Snyderverse. fan base in like opposing Warner Bros. Is that true? Because they got what they wanted, and I this is saying that they trust Warner Bros. Less now.
Well,
or are they saying that
Warner Brothers inside is upset that they did what they did, but HBO Max technically is not Warner Brothers?
Well, no, it's an entity of Warner Brothers, but
I don't know if that's true. I can't remember how the hierarchy goes there. AT&T owned HBO, and I think AT&T also owned Warner Brothers. I think they were two different entities under the same umbrella. So because HBO Max went up the chain and said, hey, can we do this? This will give us numbers and make this money. They were like, yeah. And then they kind of connected people is how I've always looked at it, because it's there. HBO Max was technically different from HBO at the same time. They had two different
HBO Now, HBO Go, HBO. Yeah, you're right. They had it. So I think they had 3 of those running at once at one point.
One comes with a premium subscription on cable, and the other is to only stream.
Yeah, wild. Okay, that makes more sense why it was so disgustingly disorganized.
Wow. Yeah,
I
mean,
remember
when all those movies came out on HBO Max for that whole year, and all the filmmakers were like, upset for very good reason.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was still all Warner Bros. Doing that because they were still the ones producing the movies, but HBO Max has been, I don't want to say, I don't know. It hasn't been very fruitful, and the Snyder Cut was supposed to be that one of those big, juicy apples that it had, and it kind of just isn't that. And even if it was, they still didn't profit from it. So does this make sense, at least, that they are regretting this? I even as many fans loved this movie, or whatever you want to call it, do you think that it would have been the better call to not release it?
Honestly, man, you're asking me to put on their shoes with their brain, and I think of my brain, which is just, if you make something, put it out in the world. Don't hide it under a bushel. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your millions of dollars. Shut up and put it out there. Yeah.
Except they did waste millions of dollars to make it.
I mean, they literally spent how many millions to make a shitty version of that movie? You can at least right your wrong by releasing the good one.
You're right. It wasn't really... That's a good point. That's a good way of looking at it. They were making amends.
They triple dipped in that situation for sure.
What a joke.
Are you a BioShock fan?
I dabble.
Because I have no idea what it is.
Well, that's a great segue. Yeah. I'll lead us into this then. This just broke, I want to say it was earlier this week, I think on the 25th, the writers of Logan are going to make a BioShock movie for Netflix. So I'm going to pull this article up from Deadline here. But apparently the BioShock movie has been very highly anticipated by the following that it has from the video games for a while now. And I guess Netflix picked up Francis Lawrence to direct it. He's worked on Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and I believe the 3rd and 4th ones, the Mockingjay, part 1 and 2. And he's still working on that prequel Hunger Games project too. So he big Hunger Games guy. But he also, that's the director. The writer is Michael Green, and he's the one who wrote Logan for Fox. So he also did Blade Runner 2049, Jungle Cruise. Yeah, he worked on Heroes, I think. I know I'm missing one. American Gods. Yeah. So just the two of these guys together, I feel like is going to put on a really interesting take on this video game of this because I think you might actually find this pretty interesting. It's a retro futuristic game series that focuses mainly on. Well, here, I'll just read it. They combine a first-person shooter and role-playing elements, giving the player freedom to or for how to approach combat and other situations, and are considered part of the immersive sim genre. So it consists of 3 main games. There's BioShock and then BioShock 2, which takes place in like the 60s. And then there's BioShock Infinite. But it takes place like all the way back in like 1912.
Whoa.
But yes. Let me pull up a very short plot for you. But have you seen any of the Hunger Games movies? Because I've only seen the first 2. I haven't totally dug that series, but I really did enjoy the first 2. I
have seen them all.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Are you excited for the prequel?
Sure. I did. I was not like, oh my God, Hunger Games, I got to go see it in theaters. No, I watch them. Like, I watched them. I had fun.
I thought they were really exciting. And I think that if they bring that same dynamic to a movie like this, it could actually work really well. So here's a short summary. The year is 1960. While flying over the Atlantic Ocean, average citizen Jack blacks out and awakens to discover that he's the sole survivor of a plane crash. Amidst the wreckage of his plane, Jack spots and swims to a lighthouse and boards a bathysphere, and takes him deep within the ocean and into Rapture. Originally conceived as a utopia where a man would be entitled to all he made without the interference of parasites by idealistic billionaire mogul Andrew Ryan. Rapture has since decayed and festered from the infectious effects of civil war and anarchy brought about by the very ideals its citizens and its leaders embraced. Aided by a sympathetic smuggler and a rogue geneticist, Jack salvages gene-altering chemicals, transforming him into a superhuman, and uses his newfound powers and abilities as well as an arsenal of weapons to fend off the vicious hordes of psychotic mutants, security robots, and armored super soldiers that resulted from Rapture's unrest, while given the choice to either rescue or lethally harvest the genetic material from Rapture's only citizens, with the chance the 10-year-old little sisters. What? Okay, I don't understand that last little sisters part. But as Jack wanders through the condemning atmosphere of Rapture, he treads towards a secret that could shatter all that he's known forever. So super unique, original idea. This would really open the door for them to do some creative, like really heavy CG, like world building. The underwater aspect of it is super cool, like deep ocean diving. They could really do a lot of fun stuff there that I don't know. Is that movie with James Wan still happening at Warner Brothers, The Trench, that Aquaman horror movie? This would be a cool supplement for that because they could find a really creative way to make those underwater scenes a lot of fun. I wouldn't be surprised if they consult someone from that team on this. But as someone who isn't familiar with the franchise, that doesn't buy into the games, does this idea sound interesting to you? Do you think they could make a successful Netflix franchise out of this?
Sure, man. It sounds.
I guess
it sounds really.
Let me guess. Just put it out.
Yeah, just put it out, man. Just don't talk about it. Be about it. To be dead honest with you, listening.
There's a new BioShock show. Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Exactly.
I love that.
You were talking. You were describing like the plot of the game. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that is the plot of the first game.
Whoa, that was a lot. I was sitting here like, okay, this is made to be a film, kind of like this is
layered.
Good.
It was layered, very
like
well thought out,
like an onion.
Like an onion.
Yeah, no, I like that. That sounds good. I will watch it. Well, I haven't seen The Watcher, The Witcher. There you go. The Witcher, The Witcher. WIITCHER. Thank you, dyslexia. I appreciate the extra.
There you go.
Yeah, that sounds cool, man. Like I'm in. Let's look at us staying on time. That's weird. You can find this podcast on the social medias by going to Linktr.ee/LightsThunderAction, all one word, no hyphens, no spaces, that get you our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we pretty much hang out on Twitter the most, which is not saying much, at LTA Podcasting, action verb ing. And of course, you can find this on the audio version of this podcast, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Good Pod, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, drop us a comment, leave us a review, give us those 5 stars. If, of course, you think we are worthy.
But this isn't the end of the show.
Not even close.
Not even close. I think I like how we just did half of it. But where can everyone find you on social media, bud?
You can find me wherever you'd like at JRB_direct. That's mainly Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Serialized. Anywhere where I can talk about the movies and shows I'm watching, that's where you can find me. But Thomas, have you even watched anything new lately? Because I wanted to recommend something this week. I don't think I've watched anything in the last week that was worth recommending.
I watched She-Hulk. Everything that I've watched, I've definitely talked about today. But
okay, all right.
But good. I have read a metric fuck ton of comics.
There it is.
As I mentioned, I read all of Thor from after War of the Realms, where he's king, and Galactus comes along. And he becomes the Herald of Galactus, and then Donald Blake comes back and is insane, and then you find out it's because of a specific person, and it's like, wow, that's fucking crazy. And so I highly recommend going and reading some damn comic books. I am begging for the day that the War of the Realms is the event movie. Avengers, War of the Realms. Give it to me, Feige. I'm going to need that because that arc was amazing. Thor did some amazing Thor stuff. He hammered people in their faces. I say people. They were more like elves, dark elves, whatever. Fucking Malekith. Dwarves, trolls, frost giants, a couple of rogue angels from heaven, I think is how it's spelled. But absolutely, just read some comics, man. I read a bunch of Star Wars comics too. Read a whole Obi-Wan and Anakin series. Finished a specific amount of whatever I was reading on Star Wars, and then jumped into High Republic stuff. Man, just read comics, dude. There's so much good content out there, and comics, not just film and television. Use your eyeballs sometimes, Also, I've been listening to Star Wars books, so there's that. What do you got?
Not much, to be honest. I watched I've been trying to get through some new comedy specials that have come out this year because I always like to stay up to date on the comedy scene. I've always just really enjoyed stand-up, and that's something Netflix still mostly does really well.
How Chicago of you.
I know, right? But this week was kind of a miss. I didn't really enjoy anything that I checked out. I did try that Me Time movie with Kevin Hart and Mark Wahlberg on Netflix that dropped this past weekend. Not sure I would recommend it. Not gonna lie. It was all right. I turn it on if you got some free time, but it's okay if you missed that one. So no, I think I'm gonna go into this week excited that I get to watch Corsicana at one of my local theaters, and I'm really excited to talk about that next week.
Then I will bring up a second recommendation, and that is Saturday is cinema day. So I don't remember. There's a whole day for it. International. Every effing theater that I've looked up showtimes for are $3 a showtime.
What day is this? Saturday?
Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I have booked Dragon Ball superhero tickets, and I'm gonna book Spider-Man No Way Home, the Fun Edition or whatever.
Oh, that's right. That's this weekend.
You know what else drops? Also, if I'm not mistaken, there might be Andor next weekend. I'm hoping. I don't remember seeing it next week because I need to see that in IMAX, man. Like I never got to see it in IMAX, so I gotta do my shit.
Oh, that's right.
Saturday, man. Saturday.
Little double feature action.
Definite double feature action.
Love it. All right.
I might even forego Spider-Man and watch something I haven't seen that I'm a little bit like DC Superhero Pets. I might go see that.
That's true. I haven't checked that one out either. I have heard it's pretty charming.
Yeah, I mean, an all animated day. Why not? Right?
That'd be fun.
For only $9.99, I can watch 3 movies. Even when I was a teenager, that didn't math out well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
These times are changing.
Oh, okay, Bob Dylan. You're not wrong because, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, times have changed. We've reached the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Terry McIver, David Thompson, JRB. I'd thank myself, but that would be narcissistic, and I don't do a lot on this show but look dumb. So thank you for supporting us. Thank you to the HWWS WebTV family. As always, I'm TCR.
I'm JRB.
Thank you for joining episode 98. Holy shit, we have 2 to 100. Worrisome. Of LTA. We'll see you next time on Thursday, September 8th. We did not mention that.
NFL kickoff, baby. Let's wait till the end of the show. But yeah, we're moving to Thursdays. And from now on, you can catch LTA on Thursday nights.
Early because we don't want to miss football because some of us have addiction problems to the ball.
Yeah. As important to us as Lights touchdown action is, it's in the name, guys. We got to see some touchdowns. So we might have a mini segment each week, which is like the NFL preview for the week or something. But it's probably going to be a little bit earlier because we're not going to miss our football.
No, I need my original drug of choice. But yeah, Thursdays, September 8th is a huge day. Start of NFL. Thor comes out on Disney Plus. Those
D23 day.
It's D23 day. Those 2 behind the scenes specials, one for Kenobi, one for Thor, also drops. New episode of She-Hulk, episode 5. 4. Oh my!
The big one.
The big one.
The bottle episode.
So September 8th, man, gonna be a big day here at Lights Thunder Touchdown Action. LTTA. But yeah, baby. Thank you for joining episode 98. Sorry we didn't mention that at the top of the show because
we'll be sure to put it in a caption.
I'm not sure how many of you make it to the end of this. So
I wouldn't be surprised if no one heard that anyway. It's been quite the night.
If you heard that, tweet at us at TCRochesterACT, at JRB_direct, at LTA podcasting, and let us know.